Before we dive into, though, what happened in Cleveland, I want to kind of go back a second. So you start coaching in like the 80s, and you're starting in college. You have success kind of everywhere you are. Around 2000, I think it is, you get your first shot in the NFL. And I think it's with what was then known as the Redskins, right? You go through your assistant coach, position coach, you've been to a few NFL teams. Eventually, we know you become head coach of the Raiders. And then you move on to, you're back and forth, but you end up at Cincinnati. You're the assistant coach of the year in 2015, right? So throughout those years, call it that 15-year stretch, everywhere you've gone, there's been success, right? Offensive coach of the year. Obviously, you know what you're doing on the offensive side of the ball. My question to start right off the bat is, when those conversations start with Cleveland, is there, I guess, first question is there multiple teams at this point talking to you about maybe making a move from Cincinnati?
Yeah, there was multiple teams. There was San Francisco that I interviewed with. Obviously, Cincinnati wanted me to stay. You had Cleveland, and then you had the New York Giants. Those were the teams.
And now when they approach you, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, through your agent, right? They say, hey, we want Coach Jackson. We want to bring him on as the head coach through your agent. When you start to have those conversations, what are they about? So here's a team that's 3-13, right? Is the conversation, we're going to blow this up and start over with a whole new roster? Or is it, here's our core. Do you think you can take this team and make it a winner?
It's normally, here's our core, and do you think you can take this team and make it a winner? Because I don't know if they're far enough along in their process to know exactly who they're going to let go, exactly how contracts will all play out based on what the new league year would bring from a financial standpoint. I just think there's a lot that go into it. So I think most people come into it with the team they have, because in the interview process, I got to talk about the team that they have. I can't talk about the team that they may have. So your conversation is going to be about who they are now. What's the vision that you have for that team as you move forward? What is the culture that you want to create? And how do you create it? And as I keep saying, people have to understand, you go take an NFL job, you're taking the job because they haven't done well. So that would just say to you immediately, just if you're just an everyday person, you would say, okay, well, then that team wants to get to winning as fast as they can. They wouldn't want to do anything to stop winning, because that's what you need to do. Because the reason why the new coach is there, because the old coach didn't win.
So I took a look at the roster. And so that 3-13 roster, and now I'm using Pro Football Reference. So if there's anything that's incorrect, right, correct me. But I'm looking at the roster and I see from the skill positions, right, quarterback, wide receivers, tight ends, 2 return from the previous year as starters. I look at the offensive line, 1 returning player, obviously Joe Thomas. I look at even the defense, I believe 1 player from the defensive line, all new linebackers, all new defensive backs. So the team that was 3-13 that you now take over, it's not the same team. Was that you saying all these guys got to go, GM, get me some new guys? Or what is happening? Is there those conversations to make all those? Because that's a lot of change.
No. When it starts to happen, that becomes a conversation. To me, that should have been really laid out in the interview process. If you were going to, what you just described, and I think there was 1 more player on offense, you named 1, there was 2. Joel Bitonio did return on the offensive line. You would think that you would really lay that out and say you're going to have a very skeleton team. It's not going to be the team you have. So as I've said before, the best team I had when I went into Cleveland was when I took the job. The best team I had was a 3-13 team. That's why I get so disappointed sometimes when people say, well, you couldn't win. Well, we just took a 3-13 team and made it worse. So how do you justify winning? And it leads me to the next point, Anthony. That's why people don't understand tanking. See, people would look at that and say, well, coach, that's tanking. What the coaches were doing, what the players were doing, that's not tanking. Tanking is the other side of this, is when you build a team that can't win. When you just said all those veteran players who played in the National Football League are now taking off a team, and you infuse it with a lot of first-time players, a lot of first-time talent. And if those players are not the players you're taking off, if those players are not as good as the players that were taken off the team, then you have a team that can't win. And that's what people have to understand.
Yeah, and that, look, I'm not knocking any professional player. You're in the NFL. You've done something right. But if I look at a team of, again, Cody Kessler, Crowell at the back, Terrell Pryor, who's a quarterback, right, that converted to a wide receiver, Coleman, that's not a team that's really striking fear into the hearts of other teams. And go ahead. So,
especially in AFC North, and those players that you just mentioned are all fine players,
right? For sure.
I mean, people have to understand this is not against the players. The players worked hard for me. I don't have an issue with any of the players. Okay, what I have an issue with is people believe that those players first were picked by me, and then number two, that I didn't know what I was doing with them, and that's the narrative that started to get spun. In that people don't understand, none of those things were in my contract. I wasn't able to pick the team. And once I realized what was happening, I did everything I could to fight it, because I know what that does to coaches and what it does to players and what it does to an organization.
So how much can you share of the conversation? So when you start seeing these guys, being moved on from and these other players being brought in, how much of that conversation can you share?
Oh, I can share. I mean, to me, it's what are we doing? And it was always, don't worry about it. We're going to get better players. Because if you take a player off, you believe you're going to put another talented player on. The narrative that was told to me is, hey, look here, we're going to give you what you need. And that's what my interview process was. We're going to give you what it takes for you to win and to be successful here in Cleveland. And so that's what I was anticipating. So as you did start to take players off, who I thought were NFL quality players, I'm looking for you to put better players on. And if you really go through the roster, we were putting on guys who were street free agents.
Oh, I know. I was looking at the roster. That's why I'm asking, if I'm a coach, I'm like, hey, hold on a minute. I know that the GM puts the players in place, but one of the things I looked at was, obviously they were big on analytics. And, you and I had a analytics expert on our show that we do every week, and we talked about analytics, but analytics only takes you so far. Am I correct in the thinking that analytics was going to be a piece, but it ended up kind of taking over some of those decisions?
Absolutely. And that's what I was led to believe, is that it would be a piece of the process, not that it would lead the process. And what I found, that it was leading the process, because if it wasn't, it wouldn't have led to some of the guys we drafted. And so no coach who has experience, and if you go look at my staff, that was a very experienced staff. I mean, there were Super Bowl winning coaches on that staff. We knew how to prepare players, pick players, get them ready, the whole 9 yards. But if people, which I appreciate you've done, because most people won't be as diligent as you are and dig like you did to find out and go, whoa, wait a minute, just look at the roster. It's not really set up for winning. It's set up for competing. Competing and winning is two different things.
Yeah, because then I look again. So from that 1-15 season to the next season, the 0-16 season, again, it's the same, almost the same look, where there's this huge turnover, right? You go from Kessler to Kaiser, Crowell stays, Coleman. I think Coleman and Crowell were the only, again, of the skill positions that stayed. The offensive line has, again, another shakeup. The defense, another shakeup. What are they telling you behind the scenes? Because clearly it doesn't take, a football genius to say, we're doing something different here that maybe isn't going to lead to success. In the background, what are they telling you?
That we're going to win, that it's going to lead to winning. And my whole thing was, in my writings and my sharing with the organization, you're right, it's going to lead to winning, but it's going to lead to winning with other coaches. It's going to lead to winning with other people leading it, because a coach cannot survive all these losses if you put him in a situation. And I understand, if you go back, and it's really hard for me because I keep telling people, and people just can't see it, and I understand. No coach in the National Football League would put himself in a position where he loses his value, where he doesn't win. Nobody would do that. I don't know any coach that would do that. I sure wouldn't do it. And I'm a minority coach. So I'm for sure not gonna do that to myself. I don't have to. I could stay where I am in Cincinnati. I could have went and tried to secure the New York Giants job. I could have did other things. So I'm not gonna kill my career by making a decision to go dive into something that didn't look like it was going to be victorious for me, especially after being at the Raiders head coach and getting fired at 8-8.
Right.
I'm not going to do
Yeah.
that.
Well, and that's the other part, right? It's so hard to be a head coach. It's even harder to become a minority head coach.
Mm-hmm.
It's even harder to have a second chance as a head coach, as a minority head coach, right? Like when we've looked at those numbers and that they're staggering how low they are. So for sure, you know your record is going to follow you wherever you go. So even after those 2 seasons, though, you're back. So before we dive into what happens in that final season, because I know there's a lot there, let's talk about some of the draft. So, a lot of times I've heard 2 different scenarios. GM, listen,
Mm-hmm.
I draft the players, you coach them. In other places where there's good synergy, it's we work together to fill in those missing pieces. How much say did you have in the draft of some of these players? All right, look like we lost coach here for a minute, so we're going to give a second for our gotta love technology. Give coach a second.
I'm here, buddy. Is that
There we go. Yeah, you're back.
was given? The context is, I as an 8-8 head coach at Oakland, who has a top 10 offense, I had to go coach on defense. I just want you to let that just think about that for a second. Not become a offensive coordinator within the league, not become a quarterback coach. I had to go coach on defense as an assistant to the special teams coach, as an assistant to the secondary coach, before I ever got a chance to go back on offense. Why is that so important? If I knew I could get fired as an offensive head coach at 8-8, you think I would ever take a job to where I knew I was going to lose in the beginning? I walked in and I was very clear in what I needed as a coach in order to take any job. One was the ability to win. I've already been fired before. So I wasn't going to take any job that wasn't going to give me the things that I needed to be winning, the opportunity to have the right resources for people to. It takes a village in order for an organization to win. It takes collaboration, alignment, and all those things, but it also takes enough. Get the right staff, again, secure the right players, create the right culture in order to win. And I knew all these things. I mean, I know what that looks like. And so I shared all those things. And now fast forward to what you said about years 16 and 17. What was being said is we're going to get better players. After the first year, it was like, yeah, well, okay, we don't have very good players. We need to move forward and get better players. But we were a 1-15 team, and I was told I did a great job. How can that be? I was told that had to be the hardest year of your life, but you did an outstanding job.
Right, because everything we hear from even internally, right? It was the roster that you had, the players. You didn't hear any complaints from players. Everyone kind of described you as a players coach. And I don't think the expectations were that high. And again, from that 3-13 team, they gutted it. So it was a different team. They draft. I want to jump to the draft because they draft Myles Garrett, but that wasn't necessarily the direction they were really thinking of going.
No, the whole thing was about securing a quarterback. And again, I had made a decision after the first year of seeing how things went, because I'm always stuck with the famous "trust me on this one" comment when it came to Cody Kessler. And I like Cody. Cody's an unbelievable person. but I knew that I would not have drafted him as my quarterback for the Cleveland Browns football team. And I couldn't understand, and I wanted to understand how we made that decision, because it didn't come from our coaching staff. It didn't come from the scouts. It came from their analytical process. And so I struggled really hard with that, because that's what I do. I coach quarterbacks. I grow quarterbacks. So now I'm having to coach a guy who, not that I didn't like, but I just didn't think was what I was looking for. And of course, it wasn't my vision of the quarterback. And he played well. And I worked my tail off getting him to that spot to where he did play very competitive football. But at the same time, we couldn't win. So that bothered me. So heading into the 2017 draft, I was going to dig my heels in the sand, that if we were going to, because again, it was said, and people can go find it, we're going to take shots at quarterbacks. Well, that wasn't true, because you take the first year, we wasn't taking shots at quarterback when we take this guy in the third round. I mean, we had the second pick of the draft. Well, here we are again, we're going to take shots, but now we're going to take a shot at a guy that I didn't think could be the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. And for several reasons, I just didn't think the environment for him, his personality, his makeup, it was going to be the right fit. And I needed to see more football out of him in order for me to jump on the table and say, this guy's the first pick of the draft. Well, they were very comfortable with their process. And again, I never was showed the process. That's the other thing, Anthony, you have to understand. Nobody gave me the algorithm to say, this is how we make a decision that this guy is now up as one of the top quarterbacks in the history of the National Football League. I never saw it. I don't know what that is. And so that right there should tell you something. So I made a decision, and I told ownership and I told the GM, I will not privately or publicly support the choice if you take this quarterback. I just won't do it.
Right. Now we're talking about Mitch Trubisky, yes. Right? That's the quarterback in question here. Yes. And again, nothing against Mitch at all, but to be first overall based on his body of work or limited body of work in college for a team that's looking for an elite, right, franchise quarterback, it's a reach.
It
right? Forget what we know today. Even then, it would have been a reach.
Right.
And so now, as an offensive-minded coach, you dig your heels in for, let's be honest, a generational defensive talent. But you're saying, hey, we need to shore up this defense too, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we were void of premium talent, in my opinion, in a lot of spots. And when I look at the National Football League, if you don't have a quarterback, and if you can't rush the quarterback, and if you can't protect the quarterback, I mean, it just doesn't go very well for you. So the next best player that I had seen based on videotape was Myles Garrett by far. He was the best player. I thought he was a generational talent. I think he's an amazing person. I think he's a hard worker. And it was the right fit.
Without, you don't name names, but the other coaches, unless you want to, what the other coaches, your assistant coaches, your coordinators, right? I'm sure they're having conversations. Are they shaking their heads too, going, we don't know what's going on?
Oh yeah, I will name names, because Coach David Lee will tell the truth. Any of my staff, people can call and ask. That's what gets me. You know, people think it's just me with a hard on, or whatever you want to say, for the Browns. I am excited that the Browns are winning. This is not about the Browns football team today. This is not about that. I'm not bitter because they're winning. I'm disappointed because of the fraud and the betrayal that was put on me and my staff. That's what bothers me, and the players that played for me, and the fans. That, to me, all that's encompassing. And so Coach Lee will tell you, there's no way that we wanted to be put in that situation. And there was other quarterbacks that we had rated ahead of him.
As a staff, right?
Yes.
I know you're even, I think it's your dog that wants to join the conversation, which feel free if if they want to join. We might get mine joining here in a minute too. So you, the staff, you're all kind of scratching your heads going, hey, who are some of the quarterbacks you had ahead?
Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson.
Yeah. Okay. So no surprises. Those two.
No.
So now you're not getting the players that you need to succeed. You're being told, hey, you've done a great job considering the roster that we put in front of you. But they're not telling you, hey, we're doing this analytics. Instead of coaching with the assist of analytics, they're not saying analytics is driving this bus, right?
They're not telling everybody else that it is. But look, we're professional NFL coaches. We've been in the business long enough. I now know, but I'm trying to keep my staff together, know it's going to be okay. We're going to work through this. At the same time, I'm fighting it every day, Anthony. Like I said, I have a paper trail that goes from here all the way to LA, so this is not something that's made up. This is something that is well documented that was going on. And I asked them to stop in turn because I knew it would kill coaches' careers. It would hurt players. And eventually I know the fans would turn on me. And I know the players, eventually you can't stand and lead players if you continue to lose battles. You can't do it. So you can only do that so much. And I knew where this was going to head. And that's exactly how it ended up.
Yeah, because it's funny. That's what the feedback I get, especially from Cleveland fans, is look at the record. That's all anyone wants to point to. And I've asked the question, well, don't you want to know what actually happened? Like, how did this happen? So they're telling you behind the scenes it's a success. Analytics are driving this bus. They're clearly looking to make, moves like Trubisky at the draft, which we've talked about before. And I know this is something that now it's weighing on you, right? Because now you're trying to protect your players. You still want to put a winner out there. Obviously, your coaches. When the 0-16 season is over, many don't know this. At what point? I know there's a contract extension that happens. When does that occur? Or did I jump too far ahead?
No, you're fine. Can you close that door, Rochelle? Can you close that door? Go ahead. I'm okay. It was right after about the 9th game, right around the 30th of, if I'm not mistaken, October, that myself, Michelle, my agent, we sat in a office with Jimmy and Dee, where he told me, I'm sorry for what I did to you, and that he knew that he wanted me to continue to lead the organization and be the coach. And for that particular reason, he was offering an extension. I said to Jimmy, okay, if I'm going to accept this extension, there's 3 things I think need to come with it. And this is after an extremely emotional plea from Michelle to both Dee and Jimmy about what happened. And he said, okay, we will work through that. We'll get to that as over time, like he would do these things that, because I thought they were important. One was to let everybody know that he had gave me an extension, because I know people would never think that he would give me an extension because the record was what it was. Because when you do that, you give someone an extension, it's normally because they're doing a good job. Not giving them an extension because they're 1-23.
Right. And
then the second thing was that he would tell everyone that it wasn't leader of this process, that it wasn't me. And he said he would do that. Third thing was that we would start to get players to be on this team that gave us a chance to win. And he said, okay. And so I felt like, okay, maybe I'm going to have a chance here finally, because for 2 years, I'm the one that's standing out in front of this thing, taking it, creating this narrative that Hugh Jackson can't coach. And it's okay with everybody because the Browns are not winning. They're being, what the Browns typically have been in the past, but it wasn't because of the coaching staff and the coaches and myself. The coaching staff, myself, and the players. It was truly because they had a process that they were trying in real time, and they were forcing this process on us. It wasn't because this is what we were earning. And so I was disappointed in that.
So when they don't announce it, he said he was going to do these things. I get it. When they don't, at what point are you saying, okay, they said they were going to do this and they're not doing it?
Well, it was the next week when he did not do it. The first thing Michelle said is, this is BS. And again, I'm trying to be, I'm in it. I'm getting ready for the next game. So I'm trying to be diplomatic. Oh, it's going to be okay. He'll get to it. And I have a staff that I'm worried about. I have, players that I'm worried about. I'm still dealing with all kind of just things myself, let alone anything else. So I'm trying to keep everything afloat and heading forward. And I kept asking Peter John Baptiste, when is this going to come out? And he goes, oh, no, he's going to get out there soon, first chance he gets. So to me, I mean, obviously, Anthony, it was all part of their process. They knew what they were doing. They knew what they were going to do and knew what they wasn't going to do. They wasn't going to take it off of them and put it, and take it off of me, rather, and put it on them. And they were going to leave it on me, and that's what it was going to be.
So now we've gone through, right? We know analytics kind of are leading the bus here. The draft is a sticking point where, kind of people are butting heads a little bit. Then the contract extension comes out. For a minute, you're probably feeling good because, hey, they're probably telling you everything you need to hear, right? You're doing a good job. This is why we're giving you the contract extension. We're going to put it out there. The season goes through, obviously, a tough season. Mm-hmm. Now you go into the next season. Still, the extension hasn't been announced because the extension took it through 2020, correct?
2020.
2020 or the 2020 season. Now, when does Todd Haley come into this mix?
Well, I think we got to back up before then.
Okay.
I mean, because you got to remember, Sashi Brown was let go. So Sashi Brown was let go with 4 games left in the regular season.
Right.
John Dorsey. Okay, so John Dorsey is now the GM. And I laugh all the time because people think the word is it was Hugh that won the battle against Sashi Brown. It wasn't me. We had a players meeting with a leadership council group with D and Jimmy, where those players were very adamant that we needed to pick players better. We needed better players on the team. They couldn't understand why the good players, the Joe Haydens, the Mario Davises, the other guys were being let go off the team if we're trying to win. The players were concerned that the organization wasn't trying to win. And there was a group of guys that honestly were fighting, wanting to play because they didn't want to put their bodies on the line for nothing. So ownership told them, hey, look, you guys, we tried something. I know all the players. They were in that room. They said, we tried something, didn't work, and you guys are right, and we need to move forward and get talent. Well, that's when Jimmy Haslam went and got John Dorsey. It wasn't when Hugh Jackson went and got him.
Right.
So I mean, people think, I won the battle with Sashi. My disappointment with the first group was, hey, look, this is what you guys told me you were going to do, and then you bait and switched it and did something else. What I still to this day didn't understand, if Sashi Brown was gone, how does Paul DePodesta and Andrew Berry get to stay? They were just a big part of it too. And if I'm not mistaken, the 2 guys I just mentioned at the end are leading the organization today. So that's got to tell you they did something right. They did something right in the process. And if what they did was right in losing, then why is everybody so mad at me about being the losing coach? Because that's what they were really trying to accomplish. Makes no sense to me.
Well, because it's easy to blame the coach for losing.
Absolutely.
And and we've talked about this before. Players, it's not in their DNA, it's not in their makeup to tank. But organizations can put you in a position to make it difficult to win. Right? Let's just be honest. People don't want to say that, but it's the truth. Yes. The only organization I know that really, the 76ers, right, trust the process. They basically said, we're doing this, and they were open about it. Mm-hmm. So you go into an organization expecting to win. There's a GM there who's probably under the directive of those higher ups who end up staying to try something, right? We know that it's analytics based, mm-hmm. And it's going to fall on you, and it does. So now Sasha's gone. They bring in Dorsey, like you said. How does that initial meeting? Like, do you meet with him? Is the relationship set? Like, what does he say? How does that relationship start?
Oh, absolutely. I thought it started off the right way. I told him what the issues were. I laid it out to John. He knew exactly what was going on and how it would, what we needed to do to turn the organization around. He came out publicly and said, the problem is not the coach. We got to get this coach players. That's why, I mean, everything that's been said, that's what I get so surprised about, that people just forget those things. People forget truths, is what I should say. The truth that was starting to show itself was out there. And then John, to me, turned his tune because I think people told him, we don't want you saying that. We don't want you putting that out there that way. So then he said it in the beginning. Then he got off of that. And then to me, it started to deteriorate after that.
So that takes us maybe to the end of that season. Do you think the relationship at that point, at the end of that season, has the relationship now
I thought it was
soured?
no, I think it was still good. I think in 2017, because he was there for the last 4 games, he saw the work that the staff put in. He saw the way the players prepared. He just knew there wasn't enough, you know. And kudos to him, he did. He went and flipped the roster. I mean, if you saw it, he flipped the roster tremendously. Well, that's what needed to happen. So you don't flip a roster if in year 2016 and 2017 you're putting the right players on the team. It just don't happen. So again, that's why I say people don't do their homework and people don't want to see it and people don't want to know. All they got to do is go look and they'll find all the answers.
Well, here I'll give you some of the answers. So if we look at, we'll start with the skill position because it's easy, right? You had Deshaun Kaiser as your quarterback, Crowell and Vitale, Danny Vitale's fullback, so a different kind of lineup. Ricardo Lewis and Corey Coleman, and then Telfer, right? Am I correct? At tight end.
Mm-hmm.
That the following year, right? Obviously Baker comes in, Nick Chubb, Jarvis Landry, Antonio Callaway, Fells, and Njoku. Some young players, but again, and there's also an offensive line shakeup from the year before too. If I tell you that list of players, it's easy now to look back, but even then you could say that even that little sample size that I gave is a much better, more talented roster than the year before.
It's more proven and seasoned players with experience, with skins on the wall, who have won games. Like you said, you take the 2017 season, the 3 quarterbacks were on the roster, and I'm going to say it again, I love them all. They're all great men. None of them had ever won a game in the National Football League. And I've coached in this league long enough to know what that should look like. And I'm now leading a quarterback room that had never won a game. So that's got to tell you something. And to me, people, like I say, they don't want to see it. And I get it. Right now, the Browns are doing well. So people don't want to see it. Nobody wants anything to get in the way of the train and where it's headed. But people forget all of the people that the train ran over to get to where they are and how they did it. That's the most important part. Because my career is not my career anymore. I mean, I've been out of football now going on 3 years. And to me, it's not because of something I did. Look, I can live with it if I'm not good enough. I mean, I'm human. Everybody has something they're not good enough. But I don't take very kindly to somebody forcing something on me and then making it look like it's me. And then all of a sudden everybody thinking it is because they had the right narrative and the right person at the right time. And it worked for them.
So we start the season. There's a story behind kind of the Todd Haley hiring. Was he your first choice?
There was 8 other coordinators that I interviewed. And then when I heard that Todd was let go, I, in my mind, thought it would be important to interview him because Todd has coached in the AFC North. He knew the other teams. He's competed against them. He had tremendous success, in my opinion, at Pittsburgh. And I thought he wanted to rebrand himself in a different way because obviously people don't let you go when you're doing really well for no reason. There's something that wasn't there. So they didn't renew his contract. So I was under the impression, boy, this would be a great opportunity for him to help move our organization forward. Part of the conversation we had when I was getting the contract extension after it is, boy, we probably like for you to come more of the CEO type, and I'm being very honest with you. I felt like maybe that was right. I had been taking a beating from the fans for 2 years, not being able to play offensive football the way I like to play offensive football. And I'm saying to myself, maybe what we do need is a new voice. Because as I said to you earlier, you lose too many battles, you're not going to be heard very much longer. So I thought maybe it was right. And I'm being very honest, it's the worst decision I ever made.
So does he take over the offense, like play calling, everything?
Everything. I had to give him total autonomy because it's the right thing to do. You're talking about a veteran NFL play caller who's coming supposedly to help you win. So you want to do everything you can to make him successful. It's no different if I was going to a team. I would want somebody to do the same thing for me. Give me what I need to be successful. It's no different than me as a head coach. What I ask ownership, give me what I need to be successful. because I can't be successful if you don't give me the resources or help me become successful. So I stood away from the offense. I pulled totally back. I gave all that to him, even though it was my baby. I just gave it to him and thought it was the right thing to do. And there's no way was it the right thing to do.
Now, how does then at least the perception, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the perception becomes that if he's now taking over the offense, how does the relationship, or does the relationship with you and Baker become, not as ideal? Like when we talk about it, everyone always says, "Oh, it's this bad relationship."
Yeah, I'm just as surprised as everybody else. I've said that so many times. I didn't coach him. I didn't personally coach him. Did I speak to him every day? Yeah, I spoke to him every day and encouraged him. I met with him one time in my office after the first game of the season, after the Pittsburgh game, just talked to him about what he saw, because I knew at some point in time he would be playing. I didn't know when, but I just knew, I could feel it. And prior to that, as I said the other day, people don't understand that there was a group of people, coaches, that didn't want him to be the backup quarterback. I made the decision for him to be backup quarterback. But I also think because of me wanting to do the right thing by the new coordinator, it hurt my opportunity for him to get to know who I really was, because I wasn't in that room. I was not coaching. I was not spending that time. I was trying to spend my time on defense, because I knew if I was over there on offense, I would want to jump all the way in, because that was my first time ever relinquishing something that was important to me.
And so you say it was your decision. So do you feel that he kind of then blamed you, even though, right, we know Todd's kind of running the ship, but do you feel he put the blame on you?
Who?
Baker.
I don't know if he put the blame on me for losing or just the environment. I still to this day have no idea, but somewhere, I'm sure somewhere there was conversations had where he was maybe given information or said something to that was totally different than what it really was and what it really was at that particular point in time. I probably will never know it. I wish him well, and you can't worry about those things. I coached in this league for too long and never had a relationship like that with a player. So
Right.
for the one time that it happened, it is what it is. Hopefully, he'll grow from it and learn from it. I know I did when it comes to players, but at the same time, I think there was others who were involved in that created that kind of environment for him.
So I'm going to end with this last question. So obviously the season doesn't start out great, right? I think it's 2-5-1. Who calls you in? Where do you have? Is it you and Todd together? Is it separate conversations?
Totally separate conversations, and you just said it. Even though the season didn't start out great, 2-5-1, there was 4 overtime games in there. So you have
and that's the other part, right? Sorry to cut you off, but that's the other part is when you look even back to the 1 win, the 0 win, people don't look at how close a lot of those games were. And so, to your point, 4 overtimes games out of 7,
and
8.
So that could have went either way. And but for whatever reason, I felt like the team was getting better, but I didn't think the offense was.
Mm-hmm.
But I made a statement after the Tampa Bay game that I wanted to get involved in the offense, and all heck broke loose. The media, oh man, why does he want to get involved? Why does he want to do that? Because everybody's remembering the 1-31, And so, but I was the head coach, and so whenever I make a statement, I'm the head coach. I can go do that. That's what I choose to do. Everybody, oh man, there's no way. He's just trying to show that he's better than everybody else. That wasn't it at all. I had to. That's how any coach would feel that way. I should be able to do what I want to do if I'm the head coach. That right there should tell everybody people were not seeing me anymore as the head coach. That's exactly what it was. So that day after the Pittsburgh game, John Dorsey and Jimmy come in my office, and I couldn't find them all day. Normally I could, and I knew something had to be different, but I was under the impression that Todd was out, because that's what I was told. I was told that Todd would be leaving. I told 2 other coaches on the staff. I was excited about going through the week because I knew next week I was going to get back to doing what I needed to do to fix this and get the offense moving forward. And they walked in, and Jimmy's like, "Hey, we need to talk to you. We're going to go in a different direction." And I go, "You got to be kidding me!" So I stand in front of this for you for 2 years. I take this. I do this. Nobody knows what goes on. You give me this extension, and now you finna run me out. And then John Dorsey had the nerve to tell me I lost the team. And that's when I made the famous statement, get the out of my office, because here we are playing. And I get it. That wasn't the most professional thing to do, but it was the thing to do at that time. Because that's when I finally found like I heard my voice. Because I've had to do what everybody else wanted me to do for 2 years. Now I've lost my mom and my brother prior to the season. Now here I am with leadership telling me I'm doing a bad job. And we have a coach who's been insubordinate the whole time, and there's documentation of that too. And so now you're gonna tell me that I've lost the team. No, get out of my office. I don't want to hear that from you. And even Jimmy said after he left, he goes, no, that wasn't fair. You had not lost the team. Are you kidding me? But you heard him say it right there in front of you. And you didn't tell him right then and there, hey John, no, you hadn't lost the team. So I really thought that I was surprised, disappointed, mad, angry, all of it, because I know what I did for 2 years. I know the sacrifices I made. I know sitting there at that time where the offense needed to head, how it needed to be better for Baker and the rest of the offensive players. And here I am now getting kicked out because I'm now told you didn't win enough. Man, are you kidding me?
Oh. How do you deal? I don't listen. I think get the out of my office was probably nicer than what I would have said. But how do you deal with when you go through the one and whatever 2 seasons and you're told good job, and now when things are starting to turn, right? Look, are the wins piling up?
Given an extension.
Well, I was going to get to that, and I said, not that the wins are piling up, but the team is clearly better, even at 2-5, whatever. The team's better, and you've got the extension. How do you deal with then being told, hey, that was a good job when you were losing, but now that things are starting to turn, it's time to go in a different direction? Is it for me? Let me say my piece. I feel I'm going to get angry, right? Because I've weathered the storm, and now as I'm coming out, you're pushing me off the boat, and I would be very angry.
I was.
Okay.
You said it. I was, and that's where all that came from. I was very angry, disappointed, a little lost. Because I know what I did. I know what I brought to the table. I know the things that publicly I created for the organization while privately I was fighting it the whole time. And I think you know this, Anthony. The people who start these things, when I'm talking about these situations where ownership is not trying to win, they never finish them because it's too much losing. And I've said that. I've said that to him in writing, that him being Jimmy and D. In writing, the coaches never get to finish these things because the fans turn on you and eventually the players turn on you because they don't think you can win. So, but this is your doing to me. And the only way I knew to make it right was by announcing a contract extension and coming out and saying this was not Hugh's process. This is something we wanted to do. They admitted it to the players in the room. In that leadership group, they told them. So now it was hard for me because you're telling them we got the right coach, we got the right leader here, but yet you're throwing him out with the bathwater, at 2-5-1 because why? Because the offensive coordinator, him, not to the players never saw the issues that I was having with him. I would never do that. Those were all behind closed doors, and those were discussed with Jimmy and management and the GM. But they knew what was going on, and now you're going to make it seem like it was me. And then at the end, when you kick me out, you use the term internal discord. Yeah, well, the internal discord is me trying to get you guys to stop doing something that you were doing to me. If that's what you want to say internal discord was, then great. But I don't think that's what he was talking about because that's not the way internal discord is described. So that's like a poison pill to a coach for you to say something like that. And then Jimmy, in a text message, which I do have, made it very clear, well, that wasn't for you. I made a mistake. I mean, I was answering another question from a different reporter, and that came. Are you kidding me? And that's what I told him in there. That's BS. You got to be kidding me. You knew what you were answering. You knew what you were saying. You said it. Take it back. Well, if I take it back, then it'd just be a whole nother stream of media blitz. And I just think right now we need to move on from it. That was the conversation.
So there's a book coming.
Oh yeah.
And because I know, we've talked about the paper trail and some of those other things. How much of a preview? Obviously, there's going to be more detail on stuff like the draft. I'm assuming the things that happened with Todd Haley, the contract extension, let's be honest, just the lies that were kind of fed to you for a couple, 2.5 years. How much can you give us a bit of a preview of what we can look forward to, and how far away do you think it is before we can actually see that?
I think it'd be by the end of the year.
Okay.
And I think people can really preview it themselves. This is what goes on in America every day. This is not new. This is big business and people of color being put in a position where they can't succeed. Let's just be honest. I'm not running from that. And I think that the truth needs to be told because it needs to stop. I've said this the other day. I have daughters, and they saw what dad went through. So I could do one or two things. I can say, forget it, and let them think, well, their dad doesn't fight and doesn't stand for much. Or I could fight this the right way because I'm fighting it with my truth. I don't have to say anything out of the ordinary or do anything out of the ordinary. I can let my truth and the documentation speak for itself. I laugh when people say there's no way Hugh Jackson has a contract extension. So pretty soon I'm going to put that out there. I want people to see it. You don't believe it? I'll show you. Okay. That there's not these conversations. Okay. I'll put those out there too so people can see it. Because I don't want people to say, because right now, what's the narrative? He's just bitter. He's mad. No, I'm not mad. I'm not bitter. Life is good for me. I have a great, thriving tequila business. There's some other things I'm doing I'm very happy with. But at the same time, something was taken from me that I loved. And it was taken from me by people who are, it's almost like they're the master and I'm the puppet. And we can do with you what we want. And I'm tired of that. And that's what's gone on in our world. And to me, until you start holding people accountable for what they do, things don't change.
About a 30 plus, right, coaching career.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I really admire and appreciate what you're doing and coming out and doing it, because a lot of times people will just kind of ride off into the sunset, like to your point, just worry about your tequila company, that incredible podcast that you do every week with me, the Coach and AK Experience, and just let it go. But it takes a lot, because you're right, people are going to say, oh, he's just bitter, right? Mm-hmm. And what follows you? What follows you is that 3-36 or whatever it is record, mm-hmm. and that you couldn't get along, right? The discord in Cleveland, mm-hmm. and it's even that alone is 2.5 years out of 30 plus. Mm-hmm. And so I appreciate and I admire what you're doing, is coming out and saying, look, here's the truth. Now, some people will still not believe you, coach. Absolutely. Some people won't care. They're going to say, I don't care. He didn't win for it's typically going to be Browns fans, and I don't blame them. Hey, mm-hmm. He didn't make our team a winner. Mm-hmm. Got it. But I think it's important to come out and say, look, this is what's happening, like you said, to people every day, where, here's an opportunity, but is it really a good opportunity? I think of, there's a situation in Houston right now where there's a head coach who's going to be in a really tough spot. And, do coaches always know what they're getting into? And so at least I think you sharing this story in the forthcoming book, I think will give people that insight to say, hey, maybe I need to ask a couple more questions, right? Because you even got stuff in writing, and still don't believe you, right? Like,
absolutely. And that's what's so amazing. And because the narrative has been, it's hard for people to all of a sudden look and say, I was wrong, or man, that really happened, because you want to keep moving forward. People don't like to go back. I get it. And so I don't run from that. But there's so many reasons why this is so important to me. As I mentioned, one of my daughters, too, when I look at just minority coaches, I mean, I could be the reason why guys don't get the opportunities that they deserve. Here was the the coach of the year on offense, Pro Football Writers Coach of the Year, and he goes to Cleveland, he bombs. So we got these other coaches supposed to be really good. They may bomb too. I don't think that's fair, but we know it happens, and so I'm doing this. And one, I think I need to tell my truth. I think one way for me to truly, not that it's not behind me, but to truly feel like it's totally out of me, is to be able to tell what really happened. Honestly, I really don't care what people think or say. I can't worry about that. What I have to worry about is the man I look at in the mirror every day and know that, hey, what I'm saying to you is truthful, and it's based on facts. And whatever people decide to do with it or don't do with it, that's totally up to them.
You could live your life without doing anything, but I think there is some closure to kind of just putting it out there. And like I said, I applaud you for doing it. There's some comments asking for autographed copies of the book. I will get you. I know who that is commenting. I will get you an autographed copy of the book when it comes out. Coach, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you.